How you going? I've got a Hobby Text Jesus here, looking over my shoulder, as Hobby Text Jesus is wont to do. I want to talk today about the stuff that's been going on with the Australian Christian Lobby Safe Schools Coalition, which is a brilliant program that started here in Victoria, and the impact that that's having on a whole range of people, but in particular the impact that this sort of talk has on me. This, to my way of thinking, is the Australian Christian Lobby's foray into the plebiscite that's coming about marriage equality. It's about creating some division in communities that sets the community, so the gay, lesbian, transsexual, bisexual and intersex people apart from everybody else, broadly us. So I'm gay, I'm part of this community. I have been for quite a number of years. It's taken me a long time to get to this point, and I only wish that I had something like Safe Schools Coalition when I was growing up, because my school time was horrendous. It really was. And people talk about looking back fondly at their school years. I can't do that. My school year was a trial, the whole thing from start to finish, and it's a product of the 70s, and I get that. It doesn't excuse it, but I understand that what happened to me was a product of the time, and I'm really hoping that this product of the time has now passed. I observe the way that my kids went to school, and they're now adults, but how they went to school and how very different their school experience was to my school experience. My son, for example, had no problems about hugging his male friends at any time whatsoever. He was very accepting. They were very accepting, and that's certainly something that wouldn't have happened in country Victoria in the 70s. You would not touch another man apart from their hand, and then only to shake it. So things have changed, but let me tell you about bullying in schools, because that's what Safe Schools is about. And for me, at St Mary's Primary School in Hamilton, bullying for me started in grade 4 or grade 5, and it was horrific. I remember being in tears, and I didn't understand why I should be in tears, and what I really didn't understand is why people could call me a poof, because not only didn't I know what that meant, but I understood that it was something that was derogatory, and that it hurt me very deeply because they used it as a weapon to put me in a completely different category of people. I was in with the poofs, and I wasn't treated fairly. In fact, I was bullied. I remember well standing in the doorway of one of the classrooms trying to get in and being hit by one of the girls and being called a poofter, and I had no right to be here, which is just bizarre. And where do you take that? I mean, there is nowhere that you can take that in the 70s, and there was no one there to help me. The teachers weren't the slightest bit interested because I was a boy, and that I shouldn't let a girl hit me to start with. And I can't even find the words to explain how I felt at the time. This is one of those traumas of my childhood that still lingers all these years on. And then going to secondary school, there's nothing like being in Form 1 in an all-boys Catholic secondary school, Monterey College, walking into the classroom and seeing "Story is a poof" written in big letters on the blackboard. And nothing happened. Nobody was found guilty for it. Nobody was chastised for it. The brother came in and smirked and wiped it off the board, and that was it. End of story. That's all I got. Nor was there any repercussions when I had to go and find my bicycle and discovered it shoved in one of the cubicles of the toilet. And there it was. I had I don't know how they got it in there to start with, but somehow I had to try and manage to get it out by myself. There was no one to help me. And there is only one reason that it was done like that, is because I was different. I didn't even know that I was different, didn't know how I was different. I just knew that I was different. And so did everybody else. And I don't know how they knew either. Perhaps because I wasn't interested in girls. I don't know. Perhaps because I didn't speak the lingo. I don't know. I have no idea. It was a time of great confusion for me. It really was. And it took me years and years and years to come to terms with my sexuality. What I needed was somebody that would have helped me when I was growing up. And it wasn't there. And it wasn't there for a very long time. Now we have Safe Schools Coalition that's doing great work across Victoria and more and more across the nation now, where they're rolling out their program to many schools and they're helping people. And that's a really important thing to be doing, to be helping those people that actually need it. So it doesn't matter who you are, you should be allowed to go to school and not fear that you will be left out, not fear that you will be bullied. And that's for everybody. And sexuality and gender identity is a very important part of that process. And we need to understand that people have this. It's a real and present thing that goes on in people's lives, and we need to be there to help them. What I want to do is have a look at some of the arguments that's been used by the Christian lobby, and Lyle Shelton in particular, and the sort of impact that has on people, but also to challenge some of the thinking. Let's have a look at this.
Safe Schools material itself actually asks schools to change their bathroom policy to allow boys who are identifying as girls to be in the same bathroom as young girls, and also to share accommodation on school camps. It says that gender is not uniform, with a picture of a boy wearing a girl's school uniform. So I think a lot of parents would be rightly concerned about this, that this goes way beyond an anti-bullying program.
This is an argument that I've heard being used in the United States that is used to tramp down the rights of trans people in the US, and it's called the No Men in Women's Bathrooms. And the thinking here is that if a man wants to dress up like a woman and go to a woman's bathroom, he's up to no good. And of course this completely misrepresents the reality of trans people, is that they want to go to a bathroom where they feel comfortable. They're actually not going in there for some perverted reason, which is what Lyle's getting at. And that's the whole problem with this notion of young girls in young boys in girls' bathrooms. Is the problem is he's saying is that they're perverts. They're in there for some sexual gratification. This is not about sexual gratification. This is about gender identity. This is about making sure that people are happy in the areas that they need to use on a regular basis, that they don't feel like they're being harassed and bullied. Can you imagine a trans student having to use a boy's bathroom instead of a girl's bathroom because that's what the school dictates? That's just simply crazy talk, and it's not fair. And that's the problem here. This is where the bullying starts, because you're not letting people use the correct facilities. You're making them use the one that you think should be right. And if we look at the Safe Schools Coalition stuff, it doesn't demand that schools do anything at all. It says schools can also consider providing gender-neutral toilet options, which should be accessible to any student who wishes to use them, and will help to establish a more inclusive environment for transgender and diverse students, transgender and gender diverse students. There is no requirement to use a unisex or accessible toilet or changing room unless a student makes an active choice to do so. And then when we talk about school camps and events, it says check with your accommodation provider to see what options are available. If there are private changing areas, the student will be able to stay in the same space as people of the same gender. And what is it about a boy in a girl's dress that's a problem for you, Lyle? Why is that even an issue? Surely this is a girl in a girl's dress, a trans student in a girl's dress, if you like. What does it matter to you whether or not somebody wears a dress? It doesn't have any impact on you whatsoever, and if it makes the student feel comfortable, why would you even stand in the way? That's simply just, again, a crazy notion that you would object to somebody being in a dress just because it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Frankston High had told me that they didn't have any transgender children, so I just thought it's a funny approach for people sitting there that don't sort of have that affliction.
I find it a little bit hard to understand how the Frankston High School would have said they have no transgendered students. How would they know? And why they're even in the program if they've got no trans students is bizarre. But the thing that really gets me about this, that wasn't challenged by anybody on the panel whatsoever, and I understand the way that the program works, is that it just keeps flowing. But these things we need to stop, and we need to challenge the words that are used. It's not an affliction. Being gender diverse is not an affliction. It's the way you are. It's not that they're broken and need fixing. They may need some help to understand who they are and who they're going to be, but it's not an affliction.
Because this is very much contested, we should have a good look at the science and the clinical studies, and to make sure that children like yours are given all the support and help that they can be. But it's got to be based. It's got to be based on the right sort of science.
All of us.
I'm really amused that Lyle thinks that it's got to be based on the right sort of science. What does that even mean? What is the right sort of science, Lyle? You tell us, because all you can do is quote studies that seem to be discredited, and you very much cherry pick those studies that you want to use to illustrate your point. The truth of the matter here is, Lyle, is that there is science. The science is in, and you don't like it because it doesn't suit your biblical world view. It's a mistake to actually take the Bible as gospel and then try and make the science fit it. So what Lyle and the Christian right like to do is find studies that support their biblical worldview and close themselves off to any other sort of science. So if there's science out there, Lyle, that you're worried about, let's have that science and let's talk about that. And let's explore and expand the scope of your research so that you're including all science, Lyle, and not just the bits that make sense to you.
Now, what I guess we've got to realise is that under Article 16 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says that men and women of marriageable age have the right to marry and found a family. Now, that's common sense as well.
Before we have a look at what Lyle's got to say about the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, let's just have a listen to the UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, back in 2012 when he talked about this issue.
Some say that sexual orientation and gender identity is a sensitive subject. I understand. Like many of my generation, I did not grow up talking about these issues. But I learned to speak out because lives are at stake, and because it is our duty under the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to protect the rights of everyone, everywhere. The High Commissioner's report documents disturbing abuses in all regions, with a pattern of violence and discrimination directed at people just because they are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. There is a widespread bias at jobs, schools, and hospitals, and appalling violent attacks, including sexual assault. People have been imprisoned, tortured, even killed. This is a monumental tragedy for those affected, and a stain on our collective conscience.
I guess it's easy for Lyle to cherry pick the part of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights that he likes, but when he does that, he misses out some other important aspects of the Charter. And it starts right at Charter 1 that says all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. It's 1948, we wouldn't use the word brotherhood these days, but if we then look at Section 2, and I think this is the really important one and the far-reaching one all the way back from 1948 that Lyle doesn't seem to get, and that is everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, colour, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or other status. That's the important bit here that Lyle doesn't want to get. It is the other status. And when he jumps to 16, he's quite right what he's quoting, but he's mischievous in his interpretation of it because it can be interpreted in a different way if you so choose. It says, men and women of full age without any limitation due to race, nationality or religion have the right to marry and to found a family. It doesn't say that it has to be a member of the opposite sex that you're marrying. It just says men and women of full age, without limitation, have the right to marry and to found a family. So you can read that another way as well. It's easy to cherry pick the bits and pieces to support your cause and to try and give some authority to what you're talking about, Lyle, because you think it's important that you have the authority of the United Nations because it's in this very important document that's called the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. I'm a human, I've got rights, and it says so right there in the Declaration.
All of the Christian denominations in Australia, including, well, all of them except for the Quakers, who I've hardly heard of, they all support marriage between a man and a woman. That's their teaching.
40 faith leaders have
they did. I saw that, Karen.
from you last week.
And all of the leaders of the denominations, including Muslim community leaders, signed an open letter last year. Didn't get anywhere near the attention that these other people signed, but certainly all the leaders of the denominations support this. So we are in line with what Christian churches teach, what the Bible teaches.
Of course, we're supposed to be impressed with Lyle's approach to gathering together all these Christian denominations, of which he clearly says he's not representing. He doesn't claim to be representing the vast majority of Christians in Australia. He makes that point really clear, but he has no hesitation about trying to use the authority of those churches to further his cause. And here he's talking about all those faith leaders who have stepped forward to support his thinking. Let's just have a look at some of them, not all of them, because you can go and search this online if you like, but let's have a look at some of those religious faiths that he's talking about. He's talking about the Movement International Network of Churches, the Coptic Catholic Church, the Australian Christian Churches, whoever they are, the Churches of Christ, the Ancient Church of the East. I'm sure they've got a great big following here in Victoria and Australia, the Presbyterian Church of Australia, the Quorum of the 70, the Mormons, the Coptic Orthodox Church, the Archbishop of the Anglican Diocese of Sydney, absolutely no surprises there, the Syrian Catholic Church, the Catholic Archbishop of Sydney, the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, the Christian and Missionary Alliance of Australia, the Rabbinical Council of Victoria, Melbourne and Sydney's Beth Din, the Australian Federation of Islamic Councils, Australian Islamic Cultural Centre, the Islamic Shiite Council of Australia, Act 2 Alliance. Acts 2 Alliance. I bet they're big. The Armenian Church of Australia, Greek Orthodox, the Apostolic Church in Australia. So there's some of the big names that Lyle's managed to get. Yeah, he's done a pretty good job there. But the point here is that these are leaders of these faith churches. It doesn't mean that they're representative. And I think that's the point about religion, is just because the leaders have come out in support of this doesn't actually mean that that's what their people think. Long gone have the days of being told what to think by your minister or your bishop or your cleric. Being told what to think has long gone. It doesn't happen anymore, Lyle. Just because you got the faith leaders doesn't give them any extra authority. And the other point to make about this is, I don't care what they think. I certainly don't care what the other lot that have signed this letter recently think, and they're people from the Uniting Church, the Metropolitan Community Church, the Anglican Church, a Buddhist priest, the Wayside Chapel. They're people that sent a letter to the Prime Minister that are supportive of marriage equality. And I don't care what they think either, because it doesn't matter. They don't represent me, and I don't care that they think, and I don't care what Lyle thinks about what the Christian teaching is. That has no bearing on civil marriage. This is about civil marriage. This is not about what the leaders of churches think, because the leaders of churches are not representative of the views of the people that sit in their pews every Sunday or Saturday or whenever it is that their holy day is. It doesn't matter what they think. And then this whole concept that the Australian Christian lobby, the ACL, is aligned to Christian thinking and Christian teaching and the Bible. What does that even mean? Does that mean, Lyle, that you're happy for me to be considered an abomination? Does that mean that you will stone me to death because I deserve death, because that's what Christian teaching actually says in the Bible? How extreme do you want to be, Lyle? Which bits are you going to cherry pick out of the Bible? And therein lies the whole problem with the ACL, is that they want to cherry pick the bits and pieces. So as much as we try to understand what it is the Australian Christian lobby is trying to do, what you need to get through to yourself here is that this has got nothing to do with marriage. This has got nothing to do with the rights of the children. This has got nothing to do with the United Nations. This has got nothing to do with transgender people. What this has to do with is his faith. The faith of the Christians, and that is that homosexuality is wrong because that's what it says in the Bible. And you can take away all the nice words that Lyle wants to say, but at the end of the day, The bully that is Lyle Shelton wants you to conform to his ideal of what Christian values are. It doesn't matter what you think, you need to conform because he thinks it is his God-given right to use his position to further the gospel of Jesus Christ. And guess what? I reject that outright. Thanks for watching.